A former WWE star is set to debut on AEW Dynamite, AEW Collision, and Ring of Honor. Also, in addition to that, guys, we got to talk about a WWE superstar who left the company, kind of outspoken about the company. Now, this person is set to possibly come back to the WWE. I'm going to tell you guys why I'm for it, and then also why I'm against it. And then we got to talk about some huge news surrounding the Judgment Day getting a new member. Maybe you saw it on WWE Raw, or maybe you weren't paying attention, but we got to talk about it. All right, guys, if you want more videos like this, go ahead and click subscribe. I want to kick things off with the Judgment Day, and more specifically, this thing right here, because Roxanne Perez and Finn Balor were caught talking backstage to each other during WWE Raw. Now, this was very quick and very subtle, and maybe you didn't see this coming, but I do think it is something worth paying attention to. WWE doesn't do things like this by accident. They treat the backstage environment like an open world where things that happen backstage actually tend to matter a lot. If you've paid attention throughout the years with Karrion Kross or Wyatt Six or the Bloodline or whatever it may be, this is something that Triple H does in his creative writing that I actually very much like. And now it got me thinking about Roxanne potentially joining the Judgment Day. But is she really joining the Judgment Day? I don't know. To me, it seems like Finn Balor is going to be breaking away from the Judgment Day. So what is really happening here? I think if you're fantasy booking different ideas, maybe Finn Balor starts a new group to break away from the Judgment Day. Once Liv Morgan comes back, I definitely think we're going to see some sort of split happen. I think it's very clear with the Judgment Day the way that it is now, I believe has genuinely become stale. I have not been a big fan of the Judgment Day storyline really since Rhea left. I feel like it's kind of been played out a little bit. Maybe it's gone on a little bit too long. And that's okay, right? Like that's kind of how things are in WWE. Sometimes things just go a little too long and they got to break away from it. But WWE has definitely been teasing this. I think Roxanne Perez being involved in a group actually wouldn't be a bad idea because if you look at the new talent being introduced, they're not going to be gunning for a world championship anytime soon. I think WWE very much has plans where there's certain people who are trying to be, positioned a certain way. But I think if you look at like Braun Breaker, for example, he doesn't need to be a world champion right now, but they have the wheels in motion for a big storyline for him. And that's kind of what I presume will be happening here with Roxanne. So I actually don't hate the idea of Roxanne and Finn Balor starting something new. It's just a matter of what they end up doing. But this was something that you can't ignore. I know a lot of people seem to have missed it, and that's fine, but it's just something to keep in mind as time goes on. And that brings us to Ronda Rousey. I honestly don't know how I feel about this. Like, there are things that I do like about this, there are things that I don't like about this, but WWE is looking to work with Ronda Rousey again. And this was something that's been kind of talked about a lot now. Obviously, you have to take into effect that Ronda Rousey's now a mother. She's got kids. She was very outspoken about WWE when she left the company. We saw her debut in Ring of Honor, and that led a lot of people to believe that maybe she was going to go to AEW, and that's fair, right? Like we saw her get outside of WWE and test the market, see what's out there. It didn't work out for her long term with AEW or Ring of Honor. There was rumors that Tony Khan was going to try to bring her in long term. That's obviously not what happened at all. And then of course she is a parent, so there are things about Ronda, deep down inside, I don't think Ronda truly loved professional wrestling. Just from a fan's perspective, I don't know if that was necessarily the case. But I do want to talk about this because Brian Alvarez, Meltzer are talking about this, and of course, I always say take things that we talk about with a grain of salt. But it's important to have the conversation at the very least. Brian Alvarez is saying that WWE still wants to do something with Ronda Rousey. Later on in the conversation, it becomes a talk of, if Ronda Rousey wants Shayna Baszler back in the company, they'll probably make that happen. Now, you do got to keep in mind, Shayna Baszler has been let go from the company. She was part of the most recent cuts with the WWE. I actually think if you really want to bring Ronda Rousey in, you have to do something with a faction. I think Ronda Rousey having a faction with Shayna Baszler, Jessamyn Duke, I think it works out. I think if you want to lean into the UFC TKO merger, like WWE thing that they got with TKO, I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't need Ronda Rousey carrying the world championship. I don't need Ronda Rousey burying a whole bunch of talent, but I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of Ronda Rousey being involved in the WWE. I personally thought she was good. I personally just didn't like some of the booking choices they made, and I don't really like the presentation for Ronda Rousey. This image right here is a perfect example of that. Like Ronda Rousey was a badass UFC athlete. She came into WWE, she did the eye makeup and stuff like that. I wasn't too fond of that. Now, with that being said, I am not interested in Ronda Rousey coming back if this means, hey, we're going to put her immediately with a world title and she's just going to bury a whole bunch of talent. We have a lot of great talent in the WWE. And personally speaking, I'm very happy to see how the women's division has progressed. Now you got Julia and Roxanne on the main roster. Stephanie is going to be coming up relatively soon, and so is Jordan Grace. I support it to a certain extent. I don't want to oh my God, it has to happen. But I would be okay with it as long as they go about it the right way. And that brings us to Rhino. Ladies and gentlemen, Rhino is announced for AEW, Dynamite, Collision, and Ring of Honor. They released the footage. The announcement reveal has been made public. I can't share it due to copyright reasons, but Rhino is from Detroit. AEW is coming to Detroit at the Masonic Temple, and he will be appearing on Dynamite, Collision, and Ring of Honor. Cool. Personally speaking, I love Rhino. Rhino was awesome pretty much in every company that he's been in. I've never had an issue with Rhino going out there and having a big spot, having a big moment. I've always been cool about that. It's never been a big deal. With that being said, being from Detroit, I think I could speak on this. We have seen Rhino appear in Detroit so many times. I don't know if this is necessarily a move that is selling tickets for AEW, but if you want to honor and respect somebody from Detroit, you put them on TV, I'm cool with it. I genuinely think it's not a bad idea. Now, if Rhino's going to go into AEW, and this is the thing that I hate about AEW that I get a lot of flack for, but I truly stand on this, and I've been standing on this since day one. You have talent who aren't being utilized, and then you bring in a talent who's not signed to your company, and you're going to give them TV time over somebody else. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. Even if it's for one episode, there are much more important things to be working on right now as it stands for AEW. So personally speaking, I'm cool with this happening. Please let this be done to maybe help elevate a younger talent. Don't do this just because you're going to get a pop in Detroit. Don't. It's not worth it. The pop isn't going to do anything other than sound good on TV. It's not going to help generate more ticket sales. But if Rhino goes in this week and has a short little program, maybe puts over Daniel Garcia or an up-and-coming talent, I'm cool with it. If that's not what's being done here, I really don't care. At the end of the day, I've seen Rhino in Detroit a million times. It's not like some uncommon thing. It's not some rare thing. But I support the guy. I like the guy. I hope it works out. We'll see what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Ango Show. Thank you so much for watching.